Everyone stopped what they were doing when Karen slammed that wrinkled little package on the counter. The sound echoed in the quiet store like a crack in glass. Her eyes, sharp and relentless, locked onto me as if I'd personally betrayed her. "This jerky is spoiled," she said, voice low but fierce. "I want it replaced. Now." I stared at the package, confused. It looked normal, nothing slimy or rotten, no mold or discoloration. "Ma'am," I started cautiously, "we don't even sell that brand here." Her jaw clenched like I'd told her the sky was green. "Don't lie to me. I bought it here last week." The certainty in her voice was unshakable. Around us, the room seemed to contract. Other customers glanced over, some shifting uncomfortably. Karen's presence was like a storm cloud, thick with anger and frustration. I could feel the tension crackling in the air, and my throat suddenly went dry. I wasn't ready for this. I'd worked in retail for years, and I'd dealt with complaints, lots of them. But something about Karen unsettled me. She wasn't just angry about jerky. She was carrying a weight I could feel but didn't yet understand. That's the thing about moments like this, they're never just about what you see on the surface. I looked back at the jerky package, the bright, bold label glaring up at me. I knew every brand we stocked, every shelf we kept, every supplier we trusted. But this one? No, never had it. "Ma'am," I said again, keeping my voice steady despite the nerves twisting inside me. "We never carry that brand. Are you sure you bought it here?" She stared at me like I'd just accused her of stealing. "Of course I'm sure. I remember because the cashier was new and I told her to check the expiration date." That detail caught me off guard. A new cashier? I checked the register, there. Been no sales of that jerky, no returns, no record at all. But Karen was already shaking her head, voice rising. "You don't get it. I'm not here to argue. You're going to replace this jerky. I'm not leaving without it." Her stubbornness was exhausting, but beneath it, I sensed fear, or maybe desperation. She needed something, some kind of justice, some kind of acknowledgement, and I was the one she'd chosen to demand it from. I swallowed hard. The store manager was on lunch break, and I was the only one here. I felt stuck between the impossible and the unbearable. I could call for help, but what if this escalated? What if she stormed out furious and we lost a customer? What if she was right and I was wrong? But my gut told me she wasn't right. There was a strange kind of loneliness in her eyes, though, like she was carrying a burden no one else saw. "Let me check the stockroom," I offered, hoping to buy some time, to find a way out of this without confrontation. Karen watched me, arms crossed, skeptical but silent. As I stepped away to the back, my mind raced. Why was this jerky so important to her? What was behind that fiery demand? I'd seen customers get angry before, but never like this. Was it really about spoiled jerky, or was it about something else? Something I couldn't touch or see. I thought about the people who come into this store every day, their stories, their struggles. Most of them just want a quick purchase and a smile. But some, like Karen, carry pain that spills over in unexpected ways. Sometimes I wondered if the products on the shelves were just symbols. Symbols of trust broken or promises unmet. Jerky wasn't jerky anymore. It was a stand-in for all the things people lose in their lives: control, respect, dignity. I found nothing in the stockroom. No jerky, no package, no replacement. The shelves were neatly stocked with the brands we sold, all accounted for. I returned to the counter, trying to keep my voice calm. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but we have nothing like this here. Maybe you got it from another store." Karen's eyes narrowed. "No, I know what I bought, and I'm telling you I'm not leaving until this is replaced." Her words hit me like a slap. Not because of what she said, but because of what she didn't. The desperation beneath the anger, the silent cry for fairness. The other customers started to stare openly now. A few whispered to each other. A young mom pulled her child closer. An older man shook his head and muttered. I felt exposed, like the whole store was watching me fail. Karen's stare was relentless. "This isn't just about jerky," she said quietly, almost to herself. "It's about respect, about being heard." For a moment, I saw past the anger and the demands. I saw a woman who felt invisible in a world that moves too fast to notice the little things. A woman who needed to be seen. And suddenly I wasn't just a cashier or an employee. I was a witness. Sometimes the hardest part isn't the conflict itself. It's the silence that follows, the unspoken pain that fills the spaces between words. Corinne didn't leave that day with her jerky replaced. She left with something else. A conversation started, a moment shared. And I was left wondering how many other battles people carry, hidden beneath the surface. Because sometimes dignity doesn't look like pride. Sometimes it looks like a crumpled package of jerky and a desperate demand to be seen. Why did she keep pushing when every answer I gave felt like a brick wall? Corinne's voice was steady, but behind it there was something raw, something that didn't just want jerky replaced. It wanted to be believed, to be heard. "I bought that jerky here," she said again, softer this time but no less firm. "I know what I'm talking about." Her insistence hung heavy between us. I wanted to help, but every attempt to explain felt like I was just feeding into a storm I didn't understand. The other customers had started to drift away, giving us space, but I felt like I was trapped, caught in the crossfire of frustration and silence. I looked down at the counter, my hands clenched into fists. How did a simple package of jerky become what was really behind this fight? Later that evening, after the store had emptied and the lights were dimmed, I found myself replaying the day over and over. Corinne's voice echoed in my mind, not angry anymore, but desperate. Why did this matter so much to her? I decided to ask around. Maybe someone knew something, maybe I was missing a piece. That's when I heard the story. Corinne had been going through a lot. Her husband had lost his job recently. Bills were piling up. They'd been struggling to make ends meet. And that jerky, it was supposed to be a little treat, a small moment of normalcy in a life that felt anything but. Suddenly the spoiled jerky wasn't just spoiled jerky. It was a broken promise, a tiny fragment of hope that had gone bad. I felt a lump in my throat. I'd never seen Corinne like this, so fierce, so determined. But now I understood. Sometimes people don't get angry because they want to be difficult. They get angry because they're scared. Scared of losing the little they have left. That night, I realized how easily we forget what others are carrying beneath the surface. The battles they fight that don't make headlines. The quiet desperation behind the angry words. And I wondered, how often do we dismiss people before we try to understand them? The next day, I prepared for Corinne's return. I wanted to meet her not with resistance, but with empathy. I found a similar brand of jerky, not the one she claimed we sold, but close enough. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. When she walked in, her eyes searched mine, still wary, still guarded. I placed the package on the counter gently. "I couldn't find that brand," I said quietly, "but I wanted you to have this." Corinne looked at it, then back at me. For a long moment she said nothing. Then, without warning, her face softened. "Thank you," she whispered. In that fragile moment, I saw something I hadn't expected. A connection. Two strangers meeting on the edge of frustration, reaching out to understand each other. It wasn't about jerky anymore. It was about respect. About being seen when everything else felt invisible. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. Sometimes, we have to break down walls to find the bridges on the other side. Corinne's demand wasn't just about a product. It was a plea for dignity in a world that often forgets to offer it. And in giving her that, I learned something too. That empathy isn't weakness, it's the strongest thing we can offer. The moment Corinne stepped back into the store, the air shifted. She wasn't the same woman who had stormed the counter days ago. There was a quiet edge to her, a tension beneath the surface. Her eyes scanned the shelves, but they never met mine directly. It was as if she was carrying a secret she wasn't ready to share. I wanted to reach out to bridge the gap that had formed between us. But the weight of everything, her frustration, my uncertainty, hung heavy, unspoken. "Can I help you find something else?" I asked, voice gentle but uncertain. She shook her head slowly. "No, I needed to come back." Those words felt fragile, like a small crack in a wall she'd built around herself. I wondered what else she was holding inside. As the day went on, I caught snippets of her story from the regulars who knew her. A single mom struggling to keep her family afloat. working 2 jobs, barely catching a break. That jerky, her treat, her small escape, had meant more than I ever realized. But there was more beneath the surface. Rumors of fights, of sleepless nights, of feeling invisible in a world that moves too fast to notice. I watched Karen from afar as she moved through the store, quiet but tense. She wasn't just here for jerky anymore. She was searching for something she couldn't quite name. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about her, about how easy it is to miss the stories behind the anger, to see only the demand, the frustration, and not the person. I wondered what it was like to carry so much on your shoulders, to feel unheard in a world that expects you to just keep going. There was a lesson hidden in Karen's fight, one about dignity, about the quiet battles we all face. The next day, Karen returned again. This time, she didn't come with anger or demands. Instead, she hesitated near the counter, her eyes searching. I wanted to say thank you, she said softly, for listening. It wasn't much, just a few words, but it carried the weight of everything she'd been holding inside. And in that moment, I realized something. Sometimes the greatest kindness we can offer is simply to see someone, to really see them. Karen's story didn't end with a replaced package of jerky. It ended with a small moment of connection, a reminder that behind every demand is a person longing to be heard. And sometimes that's enough to start healing. She came back again the next morning, her footsteps hesitant, like she wasn't sure if she belonged here. The store buzzed quietly around us, but for Karen, it felt like the whole world had shrunk to the space between the shelves and the counter. She didn't say much at first, just browsed the aisles slowly, as if searching for something that had nothing to do with groceries. I watched her, trying to read the lines of tension on her face, the way her shoulders seemed weighed down by invisible burdens. Finally, she stopped near the jerky display. Her fingers lingered over the packages, but she didn't pick one up. Instead, she spoke softly, almost like she was confessing. "You know, it's not really about the jerky." That caught me off guard. "Then what is it about?" She looked away, voice cracking. "It's about feeling ignored, like no matter how hard I try, no one sees me, like I'm just a face passing by, a name on a list, a problem to be solved." Her words struck a chord deep inside me. I realized then that Karen's fight was never about spoiled jerky. It was about dignity, about being recognized as a person worthy of respect and kindness. She told me about her days, long hours at work, the quiet loneliness of an empty house, the exhaustion that never seemed to lift. The jerky was supposed to be a little reward for herself, a small moment of joy in an otherwise tough life. When it arrived spoiled, it wasn't just disappointment. It was another reminder that things don't always go right. That sometimes life breaks the little things too. Listening to her, I felt a mix of sorrow and understanding. Here was a woman carrying invisible scars, battling a world that often overlooks the quiet struggles. I thought about how easy it is to judge someone by their anger without understanding the pain behind it. How many times had I dismissed people because I didn't know their story? Sometimes the strongest people are the ones who carry their pain silently until something, anything, breaks through. Karen's jerky wasn't just food. It was a symbol of all the small hopes and dreams that get spoiled along the way. That day, as she left the store, something between us had shifted. The demand for replacement jerky faded into something deeper, a shared moment of humanity. Sometimes what we really need isn't a fix or an apology. Sometimes it's simply to be seen. And in that quiet understanding, I found a lesson I wouldn't forget. She didn't come back for days after that. The store felt emptier without her presence, like a chapter left unfinished. But then, on a rainy afternoon, Karen walked in again, soaked and tired, clutching a worn-out tote bag. There was something different about her this time, less fire, more fragility. She approached the counter slowly, her eyes searching mine as if weighing whether to speak or walk away. "I've been thinking," she began quietly, "about that day and what happened after, about how I made you feel." I blinked, her words surprised me. "You didn't have to say that." She shook her head, voice barely above a whisper. I did, because I was angry, not just at the jerky, but at everything else. Life hasn't been easy, and I let that spill over on you. Her confession hit me like a wave. Behind the demand, behind the frustration, was a woman struggling to stay afloat. And here she was, showing me a crack in the armor I hadn't seen before. We talked for a while that afternoon, about the weight she carried, the fears she faced, the hope she clung to. I told her about my own struggles, the moments I felt invisible too. In that shared space, something shifted. The anger faded, replaced by something quieter but stronger, understanding. Karen's fight wasn't really about Jerky. It was about being human, about needing someone to acknowledge her pain without judgment. That moment taught me something I carry with me still. We all wear invisible battles, and sometimes the loudest voices are cries for help. We get angry when we feel unseen. We demand when we feel powerless. And sometimes the only way to heal is through empathy, through listening without rushing to fix. Karen didn't just leave with a replacement jerky or a refund. She left with something more valuable, a connection. A reminder that even in our smallest moments, we can choose kindness. And sometimes that kindness can change everything. Because dignity isn't always about pride. Sometimes it's about humility, about reaching out and saying, "I see you." It wasn't until weeks later that I fully understood how much that day had changed me. Karen's visit lingered in my mind like a shadow that refused to fade. I found myself watching the door a little more carefully, listening a little more deeply to the words people spoke, and the ones they left unsaid. One afternoon, a woman walked in looking weary and frustrated, clutching a box of damaged goods. Her voice trembled as she explained the problem, her eyes darting nervously around the room. I saw myself in her. I saw Karen's anger and pain mirrored back. That's when it hit me. The real work isn't just about replacing products or calming tempers. It's about recognizing the human stories beneath the complaints, the quiet suffering behind the frustration. I started paying attention to the small things. The hesitant smiles, the clipped words, the hands that trembled as they reached for the counter. I learned to listen beyond the surface, to meet people where they were, even when they didn't say it outright. Karen's story had cracked open a door I never knew was there, a door to empathy and connection. Sometimes I think about that spoiled jerky and what it represented. A broken promise, a small failure in a world where people are already stretched thin. But it was more than that. It was a moment that reminded me of the fragile dignity everyone carries. How easily that dignity can be chipped away by neglect, misunderstanding, or indifference. That day, Karen taught me that sometimes, the greatest act of kindness isn't in what we give, but in how we listen. It's in the quiet space between words, in the patience we offer when no one's watching. Because every person who walks through those doors is fighting a battle we may never see. And sometimes, that fight is the most important story of all. The memory of Karen's visit stayed with me longer than I expected, haunting, challenging, teaching. One afternoon, as the sun dipped low outside the store, a man came in looking frustrated and worn down. He placed a damaged package on the counter, his fingers trembling slightly. His frustration was thinly veiled, but beneath it, I sensed a quiet plea for understanding. I remembered Karen, her fierce demand, her silent pain. Instead of reacting with impatience like I might have before, I met him with something different. A listening ear, a patient heart. He hesitated, then spoke, about lost jobs, family struggles, exhaustion. His anger wasn't really about the broken package. It was about a life unraveling at the seams. That day, I realized something profound. Behind every complaint is a story waiting to be heard. Behind every angry voice is a person longing for connection. The world rushes past so quickly. We forget that every interaction is a chance to touch a life, to offer a moment of kindness that could change everything. Karen's fight over jerky was never just about jerky. It was a reminder to slow down, to see people beyond their anger. I started to carry that lesson with me like a secret strength. In the chaos of a busy store, in the flood of daily demands, I remembered to look deeper. Because sometimes the smallest gestures, The soft word, the patient smile are what hold us together. And sometimes they can heal wounds we didn't even know existed. Karen's story taught me that dignity is fragile, that beneath the surface we're all fighting battles that no one else can see. And maybe the greatest kindness we can offer is simply this: to listen, to see, to believe. Because sometimes that's the most powerful thing in the world. The last time Karen came into the store, there was a quietness about her that hadn't been there before. No demands, no sharp words, just a gentle smile and eyes that carried a hint of something softer, maybe relief, maybe hope. She handed me a small note, folded carefully like a secret. I hesitated before opening it, unsure what I might find. Inside, she'd written a simple message. "Thank you for listening when I felt invisible." That note stayed with me long after she left, a reminder of the fragile threads that connect us all. Life has a way of breaking us in small pieces, things we don't always show, wounds that run deep beneath the surface. But sometimes those cracks let light in. Karen's fight for Jerky was never about Jerky. It was about being seen, about demanding respect in a world that too often looks the other way. And in giving her that, I found something I didn't know I needed, a reminder of our shared humanity. We all carry battles nobody else sees, moments when we want to scream but stay silent, when we feel invisible and desperately need to be noticed. Sometimes the smallest acts, a kind word, a patient ear, are the ones that save us. Because dignity isn't just about pride. Sometimes it's about being vulnerable enough to ask for help. And sometimes it's about the courage to listen. As the store lights dimmed that evening, I looked at the empty shelves and felt a quiet gratitude. For the fight, for the story, for the reminder that behind every demand, every frustration, every moment of anger, there is a person, complex, vulnerable, worthy of being seen. And that sometimes that is enough.